As we step into a new year, we look back at the one we leave behind. 2025 was a year of pressure across the region and a tight global economy. But inside Egypt, the story was steady delivery and forward momentum. Egypt's 2025 story is not a list of events, it is a pattern of execution. In a year defined by regional shockwaves and global economic tightness, the state held stability, kept reform moving and delivered measurable capacity on the ground and in the numbers. Under President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi, the direction was clear. Protect the social floor while strengthening fundamentals, expand production and the private sector, accelerate national development and keep infrastructure advancing as an engine of competitiveness. By the year's end, the picture is cohesive. Country building resilience through delivery, turning pressure into momentum and moving forward with a steady hand. I'm Hani Saif. Have a very happy new year. Egypt entered 2025 with pressure on every front, a tight economy, a tense region, and big expectations at home. It ends the year with one clear takeaway: delivery. Under President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi, the state kept stability intact, kept reform moving and kept national projects advancing, while widening protection for households and opening more space for private sector growth. From streets and services to factories and clean energy, and from the new administrative capital to Sharm el-Sheikh diplomacy, Egypt's 2025 story is a single connected line. Build capacity, strengthen resilience, and move forward.
Egypt's 2025 story was a year of steady delivery, visible progress, and a clear focus on building capacity across the state and the economy. Under President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi's direction, the message stayed consistent: protect stability, expand opportunity, and keep national projects moving forward. Economically, Egypt kept its reform track active while reinforcing confidence in the country's direction. The priority was to strengthen fundamentals, attract investment, and widen the role of the private sector, while keeping social support in place for households that needed it most. The target was simple: a more resilient economy that can grow even under regional pressure. On the ground, the year carried a strong production headline. Egypt accelerated efforts to localize manufacturing and scale agro-industry, linking farms, storage, processing, and distribution into stronger value chains. That approach supports food security, reduces import pressure, and boosts the potential for export-ready products that carry the Made in Egypt stamp. Development remained front and center. Nationwide programs continued upgrading services in villages and underserved areas, improving water and sanitation, roads, schools, and healthcare. For millions, the change was practical: better access, better quality, and a stronger daily standard of living. Infrastructure also delivered major milestones. Modern transport projects advanced as part of a wider plan to reduce congestion, upgrade mobility, and connect communities to new economic corridors. The result is not only faster movement, it is higher productivity and stronger competitiveness. Diplomatically, Egypt stayed active and central in a turbulent region, reinforcing its role as a pillar of stability and a key voice in regional security and de-escalation. In 2025, carried a powerful cultural and tourism message. Heritage and museum projects strengthened Egypt's global brand and supported a wider push to attract visitors and investment. By the end of the year, the picture was cohesive: reform with protection, production with opportunity, infrastructure with competitiveness, diplomacy with stability, and heritage with global presence. Egypt moved forward, and delivery remained the headline.
For further analysis, we're joined from Cairo by the consultant at Egypt's Command and Staff College, Major General Osama Mahmoud Kabir. Major General Kabir, welcome to Q News. From a military strategic perspective, what is Egypt's core objective in de-escalation? Is it preventing spillover, preserving state structures, or shaping political outcomes? How did that objective translate into action in 2025?
Excuse me. If you repeat the question again, please.
Yes.
Couldn't hear you well.
Major General Kabir, from the military strategic perspective, what were Egypt's core objectives in de-escalation? Is it preventing spillover, preserving state structures, or shaping political outcomes? How did any of these objectives translate into action in 2025?
From a military perspective about the Egypt, do you mean shaping our military forces, or because again there had problem with the sound? Again,
yes, the core objective of the core objective of Egypt's de-escalation. Are we talking about preserving the stability, dictating political outcomes, and how did these objectives get translated into action in 2025?
Right. Now I got your point. Yeah. Thank you very much for that. Yes, as you understand, first of all, the Egyptian armed forces is one of the most powerful forces in the globe. I mean, we are in the club of the 20s, maybe. Secondly, if you can see that we are reinforcing our armed forces gradually, specifically the last year in 2025, and we have concluded that by the edicts exhibit about the new armament of Egypt and other countries, like taking part 45 countries, something like that. Mm-hmm. Secondly, around our strategic depths, like in Sudan, in Libya specifically, the armed forces actually is securing the border much more even than was the past, and we are depicting and detecting any kind of crossing criminal or criminal that crossing the borders, and we are sending our messages to make sure that this simmering province of the Middle East now, specifically in the depth of Egypt and the west of Egypt and the east of Egypt, Egyptian armed forces is in the good form now, is in good shape, and we are trying to get our best to make sure that we keep up the national security of Egypt within this very unstable area.
Mm-hmm. Well, speaking of the east of Egypt and Gaza, what were Egypt's most consequential stabilizing levers this year? Is it border and humanitarian management, deconfliction, ceasefire, sequencing, or back-channel security understandings?
Yes, first of all, diplomatically, as you understand, Egypt is the head of the spear of the arbitrators for the ceasefire agreements since the last couple of years. Egypt, Qatar, and of course the United States of America. And the pivotal role that Egypt played diplomatically through this crisis or this scourge took place on Gaza Strip, that we could finally get to a ceasefire agreement that was signed on Sharm el-Sheikh on 13th of October of this year of 2025. And but other stages or other steps and other phases of this agreement is taking place now, maybe in the United States of America and Florida. And because we are in a continuation phase, trying to move from the first phase to the second one, which is pretty much sensitive and very complicated and sophisticated one. Secondly, for the humanitarian aids, I would say this is exactly proved on paper that Egypt have provided more than 78% from what the whole world actually have provided to Gaza Strip.
Hmm.
I'm not exaggerating that. These are numbers like authenticated and written at the United Nations files and papers. And yeah, it's about that we don't cross through Rafah cross point because everybody knows about the problem because Israel wouldn't let to open it from the two sides. However, we go from the Rafah cross point all the way down to Karam Abu Salam, which has been called Karim Shalom of Israel, and we push the trucks. And up till now, I think we sent more than uh, yes, since 13th of October, 70 convoys up to now, thousands of trucks and thousands of other necessities and needs for the sake of Gaza Strip.
Yes.
Again, diplomatically, we are moving, as I told you before, that we are moving to the second phase up to now, and it's very sensitive. It's like very electrocuted, and hopefully that we can push on the United States of America as being the only country now who's able to impose leverage on the Israeli right-wing government by Benjamin Netanyahu. And let's see what will happen in the next couple of days because the man is now in the United States of America.
Hmm.
Yes.
Well, in 2025, what partnerships most amplified Egypt's influence? How did Cairo balance coordination diplomatically without losing independence of decision making?
Yes, because as you understand now, that the whole area is simmering. The whole area is in social turbulence. We have clashes and we have the genocides around Egypt. In Gaza, we have. In Sudan, we have. In Libya, we have a great crack in between two counterparts now. If you look at Libya now, we could like we hold the negotiations, we hold the talks, we hold the conferences with Khalifa Haftar. He's the general of the Libyan armed forces, and for example, Oqila Saleh, he's the parliament chief, and just to make sure that we are keeping up the unification of the Libya, trying to get a plausible and acceptable resolutions in between the two counterparts to the east and the west of Libya. We have Abdel Hamid Dubeiba in the western Libya. The man actually, his rotation has been done more than 2 years ago. He wouldn't leave his chair. While the guy who has been elected, Osama Hamdan, in the eastern Libya, he's the one now legalized to roll on the government issues, but he cannot do that because of the crack in between the two sides. So we are dealing with this very wisely. We are loading on that. We are exerting much more power, trying to get the unification, or at least not to permit any kind of other clashes or fight between two counterparts to take place again. In Sudan, actually, as you can see, the last month we received here Abdel Fattah al-Burhan in the red carpet reception. Yes, in a red reception occasion, and we declared our red lines against what might be taking place in the very near future by the RSF, and I mean here the Rapid Support Forces,
Yes.
because as you understand, some bad guys want to make another autonomous province, maybe speaking about Darfur. They need a third country in Sudan, which is directly affecting the Egyptian national forces, and we are detecting and informing about that, and observing the whole situation to make
Hmm.
sure how to defend our national security, and we know how to defend our national security, just to make sure
Yes.
that people wouldn't read between the lines. It's obvious, and it was declared by the political leadership of Egypt that these are red lines, and red lines is something to be like to put in consideration in a very good scale. And about what's happening in Lebanon, if you want to speak about Lebanon, that we are taking a diplomatic role, pivotal role to play there.
Yes.
We send our respective officials from the civil intelligence, Minister of Foreign Affairs, trying to deal with the Lebanese government in order to trying to assuage the situation, hopefully to find a way or change rules or ropes in between Hezbollah and Lebanon, just to make sure that we push out any other problems approaching to the area, because as you understand, we have a right-wing government in Israel, which needs actually to feed them blood.
Yes.
So if that would answer your question, yes.
Yes, it did, sir. Major General Osama Mahmoud Kabir from Cairo, the consultant at Egypt's Command and Staff College. Thank you very much, sir, for joining us here on Q News. In a region where a single spark can become a wider war, Egypt has played a different role. Not escalation, but containment. Its de-escalatory power comes from a rare mix geography that connects the crisis zones and political weight that gives Cairo leverage and a proven ability to keep channels open when others shut doors. From Gaza to Sudan, from Lebanon to Libya, and Libya to the Nile file, Egypt's strategy is consistent. Lower the temperature first, widen humanitarian and diplomatic space, protect state institutions, and prevent crises from spilling across borders. This is the influence, which is measured not by louder speeches, but by calmer outcomes.
Egypt's de-escalatory power is built on one thing most countries in the region cannot combine at the same time: geography, political weight, and a proven ability to keep channels open when others shut doors. In the most sensitive file, Gaza, Egypt operates as a pressure valve. Cairo does not just call for calm. It builds the practical conditions for calm, opening lines with all sides, pushing for pauses that hold, widening humanitarian access, and working to prevent a local flare-up from turning into a regional explosion. Egypt's approach is methodical. Reduce the temperature first, then negotiate the harder steps, and keep the process alive even when trust collapses. In Sudan, Egypt's role is about containment and rescue at once. With a war that threatens borders, refugees, and regional stability, Cairo's diplomacy focuses on stopping the slide, backing ceasefire efforts, supporting humanitarian corridors, and keeping the idea of a unified Sudan on the table, because a fragmented Sudan is a long-term security threat to everyone. In Lebanon, Egypt's influence shows up in the language of restraint. Cairo consistently reinforces the importance of state institutions, warns against opening new fronts, and supports political solutions that protect Lebanon from being dragged deeper into wider confrontations. And in Libya has long pushed the same de-escalation formula: preserve the state, avoid a security vacuum, and keep a political track moving toward elections, because instability there spills directly into North Africa and the Mediterranean. Even on the Nile and the GERD file, Egypt's preference remains diplomacy first, insisting on rights while prioritizing dialogue and a framework that prevents escalation and protects regional stability. In a region where crises feed on chaos, Egypt's diplomacy plays the opposite role. It slows the fall, holds the line, and keeps political space open. That is de-escalatory power, not louder speeches, but quieter, persistent influence that prevents wars from becoming wider wars.
For more details and analysis, we're joined from Cairo by Dr. Mohammed Osman, the International Relations Specialist. Dr. Osman, welcome to Q News. We are doing a recap of 2025 for Egypt. How do you define Egypt's de-escalatory power in 2025? What distinguishes it from other regional actors?
Thank you for having me, Hani. Happy New Year to you and to the audience. Of course, Egypt has adopted peacemaking, conflict prevention, and conflict resolution as the main theme of its foreign policy as of late. Egypt has insisted throughout its foreign policy on maintaining peaceful relations and diplomatic methods in order to resolve various conflicts around the region, whether in Gaza, whether in Sudan, whether in Libya. It was never part of the problem. Egypt always abided by the principles of international law in formulating its policy with regards to many of the challenging files in the region. So this is the main theme of Egypt's foreign policy, and it has always focused on de-escalation, conflict resolution, and even conflict prevention when it comes to certain cases like Lebanon, for example.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's try to break it down, take it one file at a time. Now, in Gaza, what has been Egypt's most effective contribution? Ceasefire engineering, humanitarian access, or political sequencing?
Of course, Egypt maintained basically a hybrid stance when it comes to Gaza, a very firm stance against the displacement of Palestinians and the dissolution or the liquidation of the Palestinian cause and the ethnic cleansing of the Palestinian, and Egypt played a pivotal role in failing this Israeli design. And on the other hand, Egypt also maintained a diplomatic track as part of this hybrid policy in order to maintain its role as a responsible and balanced mediator who is biased to the rights of the Palestinians, and at the same time also realistic in its interaction with the variables on the ground. And this, of course, Egypt maintained its focus on the humanitarian support of the Palestinian people, the beleaguered Palestinian people in Gaza, who, of course, were devastated by the 2-year war. So this formula that was and still is Egypt's policy towards Gaza has resulted in the Sharm el-Sheikh agreement, played a central role in reaching there, played a central role in changing the Trump administration's position on the Gaza situation from supporting and endorsing Israeli plans of ethnic cleansing and liquidation to an actual plan that pushes for a definitive end for the war in Gaza.
Mm-hmm. Well, what would you say were the main constraints Egypt faces in Gaza? Was it the verification on the ground, the fragmentation among actors, or external pressure?
Of course, it's a combination of external pressure and, of course, the irresponsibility and the rogue behavior of the Israeli government. This is the main challenge that Egypt was facing. Egypt was dealing with a very irresponsible actor, that is Israel, that threatened Egypt's security and stability through entertaining ideas like the liquidation of the Palestinian cause. But at the same time, Egypt maintained its cool and showed self-restraint and did not abandon its core principles and core stance on the Gaza issue, while at the same time maintaining its diplomatic role as a mediator.
Well, looking ahead, what are the top 2 priorities now for Egypt's regional diplomacy in 2026? What would you say is the biggest risk of escalation? I mean, are we talking about Sudan, Libya, Somalia?
I think there are 3 main venues that Egypt is focusing on right now, or 4 actually. The first one, of course, is maintaining the ceasefire in Gaza and pushing for the implementation of the second phase of the ceasefire. The second one, of course, is maintaining its stance on Sudan to push for a peaceful resolution of the conflict on Sudan, while maintaining its red lines against the fragmentation and any plans for the partition of Sudan. Its third focus is on the Nile Basin and securing Egypt's riparian rights and drawing the red line in order to prevent any attempts to sabotage Egypt's hydraulic rights. And the fourth one is security of the Red Sea and the opposing the unilateral movements or the unilateral steps taken by the Israeli countries like Israel and Ethiopia, who attempt to jeopardize security and stability in the southern Red Sea and the Horn of Africa.
From Cairo, ladies and gentlemen, that was Dr. Mohammed Osman, the International Relations Specialist. Dr. Osman, thank you for joining us here on Q News. Now, Egypt did not drift through 2025. It drove through it. Under pressure at home and volatility across the region, the state kept moving. Reform without losing the social floor, investment without losing discipline, and diplomacy that held Egypt's weight steady when the region shook. This is a year measured in delivery, shielding households, securing financing, protecting the Suez lifeline, scaling industry and agro production, opening a private green power market, expanding social protection, landing the Sharm el-Sheikh Gaza framework, and putting Egypt's heritage and defense industries on a global stage. Let's explore this with our colleague, Monam Salhi.
Egypt's 2025 story was not written in headlines alone. It was written in delivery. A year of steady state building, economic discipline under pressure, strategic infrastructure that expands capacity, and diplomacy that keeps Egypt anchored as a regional pillar. President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi's approach stayed constant: build, protect stability, and open new lanes for growth. In February, Egypt reinforced its social safety net with expanded protection measures, including added cash support through Russian cards and targeted aid, alongside a roadmap for wage and pension increasing starting July. The message was direct. Economic reform continues, but protection for households stays on the table. March delivered a major financial signal. The IMF Executive Board completed Egypt's fourth review under the Extended Fund Facility, unlocking an immediate disbursement and reinforcing international confidence in Egypt's macro stability amid a difficult regional environment. Also in March, the Red Sea crisis hit hard, with President Sisi saying disruptions were costing Egypt around 800 million per month in Suez Canal revenue. The emphasis, however, was on resilience, safeguarding artery of global trade and pushing forward with modernization and competitiveness, even under pressure. On May 21st, President Sisi witnessed the opening of Phase 1 of Future of Egypt Industrial City during the harvest season activities. It was a clear statement of direction. Egypt scaling agro-industry, localizing production, and moving from import pressure to export capability. By early summer, Egypt advanced a new chapter in clean energy markets. A private-to-private model began taking shape, enabling direct sales of renewable electricity to industrial users, supported by regulatory work and early contract approvals. This was not just green ambition, it was market design that attracts investment and strengthens energy security. In September, Egypt moved to launch Phase 2 of Hayya Karima in fiscal year 2025-2026 with major allocations for water and sanitation projects. The headline is scale: thousands of villagers, millions of citizens, and a development model that treats basic services as national security. In October, Egypt hosted the signature moment of Sharm el-Sheikh Gaza deal, a framework reached on October 9th through mediation led by Egypt alongside the United States, Qatar, and Turkey. Days later, world leaders gathered in Sharm el-Sheikh to endorse the agreement publicly, with President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi and US President Donald Trump framing the deal as a turning point toward ending the war and locking in a phased path forward. November brought soft power and global spotlight. Egypt's Grand Egyptian Museum inauguration was set for November 1st, a landmark cultural moment that positions Egypt's heritage as an economic engine for tourism, brand power, and international presence. December opened with a strategic signal. President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi witnessed the launch of edX 2025, one of the region's largest tri-service defense exhibitions hosted in Cairo with broad international participation. Beyond hardware, the moment underscored a national direction, stronger domestic capabilities, deeper industrial partnerships, and a state posture built on readiness and stability in a highly volatile region. By the end of 2025, the picture is cohesive: social protection alongside reform, industry alongside agriculture, clean energy alongside market reform, and transport and ports built as engines of competitiveness in a turbulent region and a tight global economy. Egypt's message through 2025 was simple and loud. The state is moving forward, and delivery is the headline.
Thank you, Mona. That, in essence, is Egypt's 2025 story. Steady delivery at home and steady restraint abroad. A country using weight, geography, and diplomacy to keep doors open, lower temperatures, and protect stability in a region that rarely pauses. But Egypt's year also unfolded against a wider global backdrop. Elections that reshaped governments, power shifts that redraw priorities, and new political fault lines that will define 2026. After the break, we look at the ballots and turning points that changed the world in 2025 and what those outcomes mean now. I'm Hani Saif. Stay with Q News. Our 2025 recap continues next.